noise. Oh. Oh. There we go. We did it. That made it even better.
Carburetor wasn't happy with that one.
Carburetor wasn't very happy with that one, but we got it. How's it going? Are you having a good day? My day didn't start out so hot. You ever have one of those days where it's just like, I don't know, it just stacks up stuff? Like first I got a cop that was all mad at me because I pulled out and he thought it was a little too close, but I didn't spin my tires and he didn't have to slow down. So what's the problem? And then I spilled coffee all over my seat, and since it's a perforated seat for heating and cooling, which is awesome, but it turns out not so good for containing coffee. But guess where we are today? Well, you know where we are. We're over at this guy's house right here. You know him, Dr. Torque, aka the Keeper of Time, the Action Man, man of many names.
The Keeper of Time.
Yeah.
The on-time guy.
The on-time guy, which I am not. I understand. And this is one I've been looking forward to talking about for a while because there's a cool story behind this. But before we get to the story, what the heck are we doing on this today?
We're pulling the third member out of the rear end. We're changing the gear ratio in it.
Changing the gear ratio back to
Stock.
What stock configuration?
Yeah, putting the stock rear end back in.
Okay, back to that. And I think we're changing, putting the stock tires
wheels
back
on.
Wheels and
too.
tires. Yeah.
That's the plan anyway.
So walk us through what we got to do here. What are we doing?
So we've got to take the wheel off and then take the brake drum off and then pull the axle shaft out.
Which is kind of cool because it's really weird to see the whole thing just slide out.
And then I got to roll under it and take off 10 nuts.
10 of them.
10 nuts.
10 nuts.
And then
It's a lot of nuts.
break the seal on the gasket so all the gear oil comes flopping out.
Let's look under here. Yeah, that's going to be kind of cool because this whole thing slides out. It looks really weird, but it's pretty neat.
Yeah, threads on this side of the car are left-hand thread. The Chrysler engineers did that back in the day, so they're left-handed on the left side of the car and right-handed on the right side of the car.
I didn't know that.
So as you drive, they have a tendency to tighten instead of loosen.
Okay, so that's cool, unless you don't remember when you're taking it off.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't know that and end up breaking the wheel studs.
Yeah, that would be sucky. We got a couple things to do, and time's a wasting because my morning was stupid, and so we're gonna get to work. All right, thanks for coming out and helping. Let's go.
Years old.
Oh, really?
I had a Dart, so similar car, except the wheel well only comes up about this high. And I was driving it on the interstate coming home from a town that was about 2 hours away, and it started going. Didn't know what was going on, and I was a teenager, so you just keep driving.
Well, what else are you gonna do?
And eventually it got so bad that we pulled off at a town about an hour from town, and the whole axle shaft, the bearings and everything had come apart in there, and the whole thing had slid out, but the fender well kept it from coming all the way out.
Really? Yeah, I suppose, yeah, it's got a nice lip right there, as long as the tire doesn't go past this.
So I took, to try to figure out what was going on, I jacked it up, and took the wheel off, and I had gloves, like winter gloves, because it was the middle of winter. And I grabbed the brake drum, and it was so hot I like had to let go instantly because it was like burning me, and the gloves were just melted. They were like polyester outside gloves, and they were like and they were just toast.
That's exciting. Well, so that's the perfect story for what I was talking about.
Yeah, so
perfect.
My friend's mom had to come pick us up, and had to have the car towed the next day.
Okay, real quick, what are you doing next on this?
I got to get under there and take off 10 nuts.
10 nuts.
This whole this is a differential. It has a third member that comes out the front, so the whole gear conglomeration comes out in one piece, and so I've got to do that next. I've got to take off the nuts and then drain it as best I can, and then pull it out and flop the other one in and put it back together.
Sweet.
Probably.
I like it. Time to get to work. Okay, so let's talk about what we're doing here. So this is staying. We're not removing this or any of that. It's this that's coming out, right?
Yeah, this whole black thing right here, and silver, I guess.
Black and silver. Silver makes it go faster, and the black so makes it look cool.
Sure, either that or when Richard was rebuilding it, he wouldn't not paint stuff.
Well, I'm good with Richard on that. Oh, these are air shocks? Oh, I didn't know these were air shocks.
It's actually, when the second owner bought this car, he came into the auto parts store where I worked, and I sold him some things like the dash pad, the dash mat.
Man, there's so much history on this car. Maybe this is a good time to talk about it, or should we do it when we're driving? There's a whole crazy history of interconnectedness in different states. And this guy right here, the original owner, the second owner, I mean, it's nuts.
Well, this car was originally purchased by an old man in Missoula, Montana in 1970 as a retirement gift for himself.
Okay, so he retired. He's like, you know what? I've been working hard. I'm buying a car.
I'm buying the car I want. And
but
so
but there was something specific about the car. Why this car?
Well, it's a smallish car. At the time, it was considered a compact, and it's a performance car. It's got a 344 barrel in it, so it had 275 horsepower rated. And so it was a good car. And I actually met him when I was 18 years old, and he was in his late 80s.
Late 80s, okay.
I ran into him in a parking lot because I saw the car and I really liked it. And my friend and I were trying to figure out how to leave him a note to tell him how much I liked his car and was hoping to buy it someday.
So you were really going to leave him a note, and you really liked that? Okay, all right.
So he walked up while we were trying to leave a note and said, hey, you guys like my car? And we talked to him for a while. And it was funny because we were only 18, and he seemed like a really old man. And it turns out, once I learned more about it, he was an old man. He was in his late 80s. He was like 88 or 89 at the time.
And how old was it? How long did he have the car at that point?
At that point, he had owned the car for about 18-ish years at that time.
Okay, cool.
And so it was just funny because we were, young kids, and, you don't expect an old person to go, yeah, and it can really move when you give it the gas. And so that was just funny. And so he took my name and number and said he'd call me if he ever decided to sell. And I never heard from him again. And about 4 years later, a car pulled up in front of the auto parts store where I was working at the time. And I thought it was maybe him or something, but I recognized it as this car. And I went running outside to see if it was the old man, and it wasn't. It was the kid that lived next door to me when I grew up.
Another connection.
And I was like, I'm like, dude, what are you doing with this car? That guy said he was going to sell it to me. And he's like, oh, you were never going to get to buy this car. He's like, I lived next door to him for a number of years, and I used to paint their house and shovel their driveway and mow their lawn and stuff. He's like, you were never going to get to buy this car. I got to buy this car. So unfortunately, the old man had passed away, and his wife sold the car to Rick, my next door neighbor. And so Rick tore into the car, not tore into the car, but, you know, like pulled the seats out and cleaned underneath the seats and tightened all the nuts and bolts and made everything, you know, really nice, you know, as far as a good driver car goes.
Didn't change anything. He's just like...
No, just cleaned everything up and made sure everything was, you know, up to snuff. And then I hadn't seen the car since around that time. And so a couple years ago, a friend of mine, sent me a picture of a car. It was a 340 Duster, and I was like, oh, is that for sale? He's like, he thought he was going to buy it. I said, well, let me know if you don't buy it. I'd like to buy it. Not realizing that it was this car. Again, it was, you know, I was seeing little tiny pictures on my phone. And so he decided he wasn't going to buy it, so he gave me the name of the guy who had bought it from Rick, my old next door neighbor, who ended up selling it to me. So I've owned it for 2 years.
That is crazy. And it's the car that you always had wanted to buy.
Yeah, I tried to buy it, you know, 30 plus years ago.
That's pretty awesome. That's a pretty neat story to have gotten a hold of the car that was from way back then. I mean, pretty unusual story.
So I made very few modifications to the car. I, you know, changed out this third member here to give it a, you know, better accelerating rear end, you know, rear axle ratio.
Yeah.
And put different springs on it because the original springs were a little saggy.
And that's very shiny. And that's it.
And now we're putting the stock rear back into it.
And this will make it pretty much 100% stock, right? I mean,
well, I'm not changing the springs back.
Well, I mean, those are wear parts, right? But I mean, except for a wear part that might have had to been changed, it's stock.
But I do still have the original springs in case somebody in the future wants to put them back on. You can actually take them and have them re-arched. You can have, you know, a spring place go through them and, you know, put the correct amount of spring back in them like they're new. But
that makes sense. I did that on my Mazda, but that was to over bend it.
These were cheaper to buy new and put on than re-arching the originals. So that's why I decided to do that.
Makes sense. Pretty cool, man. And now is the time where we are going to drop this sucker down so you can change that back.
Maybe.
Have you decided how you're going to do it?
I should have jacked this up a little higher.
I have one hand. I'm the cameraman, but
oh,
I don't know what that was.
That was a tag that needed to come off, so that's okay. So,
it's very heavy. We got it.
That is what I was trying to do, and that went smoothly.
Sweet. Probably my extra hand.
It probably helped.
It probably didn't help much.
Trying to decide whether, I got to get the gasket out of here, and then get this all slid out from under here.
Yeah.
And then put the new gasket on, and you know, strong arm the new one, or the new old one back up there.
Cool.
And then start just putting nuts in place and slopping pieces together and whatnot. Oh, I got to remember to look to make sure that the pieces that hold the axle shafts, or that the axle shafts butt up against, came out with the rear end and aren't in here somewhere.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Because I had one time where somebody else changed one of these for me, and they dropped one of those buttons down into here, and I was driving down the interstate on my way to that town where I had to abandon my car that time when the axle came apart. But in a Ram Charger.
More ties.
And apparently the speed on the interstate swirled the gear oil up enough that it was able to pull that metal up into the gears.
Oh, right.
And it went BAM! Oh. And it actually put a big hole in the back of the housing. That
is bad.
Yeah, it was bad.
I tripped up the gears in a Jeep in the back. Just ground them up. Ground them up. It was awesome. I had to drive home in 4-wheel drive. And every once in a while, I'd suck one of those up and go, kapow! And jump.
So you know.
I do know. Yeah, it was awesome. It'd jump around and then kapow! It was very exciting. So, all right, cool. Well, let's get on to the next one then, huh?
Yep.
Sweet.
And cut.
And cut. Well, we did this machine back together right here, Duster. It's ready for testing. So we're gonna call it right here, but before we do, we're gonna say, was it worth it? We're gonna have to ask the action man who's putting the stuff away, because it was a long day. Was it worth it?
Well, I put it back to stock, which is what some people want, so.
Yeah, that's the whole, like you say, the appeal of this car right here is that it's all stock. It's all factory. And we had a couple things that took longer than expected. Pretty normal, apparently, projects. But we got it done, so now we're gonna take the car wash. Today, so we test drove the car. I'd say success.
Still works.
Still works. Car wash was a success.
Yeah.
Goggles, total success.
Oh, yeah.
Burnout,
single tire.
Very successful. I like that. The drive by, well, sir. I would say a couple things before Tom's favorite part of the whole episode, and that is, again, don't forget to subscribe, because we like to hang out with you, and that's the only way you know. You have to subscribe, and you have to
ring the bell.
You have to ring the bell. That sounds like a song. Something about ringing the bell. Oh, hold on.
Stand by.
Subscribe and ring the bell. That's awesome. All right. Well, we love you. Thanks for hanging out. It was super cool. It was fun to go on a test drive. And this is Tom's favorite part. I'm going to switch sides because it's even better. We're going to take you out with the fist bump of friendship. Wow.